these factors combined have cost our country millions of dollars. In the Intelligence Authorization Bill for FY 2010, we included what is known as the Nunn-McCurdy provision. The measure forces space programs to come in on time and on budget or face immediate cancellation unless a review finds it is critically important for our national security. We encouraged NRO to only invest in space systems with proven technology and to prevent costly delays with research and development when research and development is conducted on the spot. We also promoted greater collaboration between different agencies, including NASA, the intelligence community, and the Department of Defense. By sharing technologies, agencies can learn from each other and save critical dollars by preventing redundancy. On the Intelligence Committee, we are just beginning to hold hearings for FY 2012 Authorization Act, where we will make important decisions about the intelligence budget. We must evaluate the cost of programs and compare them to alternative systems that promise a lower cost down the road, but still provide the necessary intelligence to keep our country safe. Now, I'd love to cite my Tarzan analogy, and maybe some of you have heard it. Not about Jane, Tarzan. When Tarzan is swinging through the jungle, he doesn't let go of one vine until he grabs the other vine. We can't get rid of current satellite programs until we know these new technology systems will be successful and give our intelligence analysts what they need to get the job done. In the interim, we must have a bridge to get us where we need to go, especially if a new program is eventually chosen. Our other big challenge is ITAR, the International Traffic in Arms Regulation. It is stifling innovation in the American space industry. Most people here know what ITAR is about. 20 years ago, American companies controlled more than 70% of the commercial satellite industry. But because of ITAR, that number has dropped to 27%. A lot of time, Congress passes laws with unintended consequence. Clearly, ITAR is one of those areas. Now, with Chairman Berman, who now is ranking on the Foreign Relations Committee, we were able to pass a law in the House that relaxed ITAR restrictions, and especially as it relates to satellites and components, and we have to make sure that they're more widely available for our space program, but to make sure they don't provide a security risk. But unfortunately, the ITAR provision stalled in the Senate. But the good news is that the exposure to ITAR and that we worked this issue for a long period of time with the help of a lot of people in this room in this industry, we got the attention of the President and the administration. And the administration right now is looking to currently reform a lot of these ITAR regulations. Remember, before ITAR, we controlled over 70% of the space industry. We're now 27% and slipping. Now, this is a good first step, but we need to do more. We want space companies to sell much more of their technology overseas, increase their market share, and offer the United States better products and more competitive prices. Our other huge hurdle is launch. Right now, America spends more money per rocket launch and faces more delays than any other country in the world, in part because of the way we manage and assemble the rocket on the launch pad. We need a launch process that encourages competition and drives down costs by removing barriers. I was pleased to see that SpaceX announced last week it will provide a heavy lift capability. Hopefully, this will remove one more barrier to competition. Commercial capabilities must be considered also, in certain cases, for launching Earth observation satellites, transmitting satellite images, and going back and forth to the International Space Station or other similar missions. I praise President Obama's commitment for considering these commercial options, which will lower launch costs and improve research and development. Our countries are seeing their overall launch costs, other countries are seeing their overall launch costs drop. We need to follow suit. Ironically, the United States will soon rely on Russia, our one-time space nemesis, to provide transportation for our astronauts to the space station. When the last shuttle launch takes place in 2011, the United States will have to pay Russia to bring American satellites to the space station. In fact, those costs just went up $7 million that we're going to have to pay Russia. That's a 12% increase. Why did Russia increase their cost? Because they can. They are the only game in town. At this time, they don't have any competition. Currently, half of our national security launches rely on Russian engines. The United States should be building our own propulsion engines as a matter of national security and not rely on Russian engines. There's no question there were problems with Constellation, but to give up our quest to return to the moon, Mars, and beyond is not what I envision for America's space program. We need a new roadmap outlining our future in space. As part of our roadmap, we must commit to return to the moon through a program run by NASA in partnership with private companies. Science legend Dr. Simon Ramo, co-founder of TRW, recently said, quote, "Space will be dominated by what is called cybernetics, the emerging of the telecommunications and computers that will produce robots operated remotely. In space, we need to keep thinking out of the box. We must use our American ingenuity like we did with Sputnik. We should consider the possibility of first sending robots to the moon, Mars or beyond, and then sending a man or woman there. Imagine the excitement a program like this would generate in the science world. If we allowed a scientist or even a student to do the research remotely from a sophisticated computer here at home, we could have a virtual presence in space. You know, I can see it now. A student with a helmet and a joystick controlling a robot on Mars as it picks up rocks, and we investigate what is underneath that rock. Let China or Russia put all the extra money and effort into their space program to get a man to the moon. We've already been there, and we've already done that. Our astronauts have already looked at those rocks. Now we have to learn what's underneath the rocks. We can get to the moon quicker, cheaper, and easier by going there virtually, by using a robot. This is not saying we will not return to a manned mission to the moon. We need to keep focusing our goal on manned missions, but we can do that in a well-thought-out process in the coming years. This is what we should first do. This new virtual plan will reinvigorate our space industrial base, get our young people excited about pushing our country forward in the space race, and inspire people of all ages to dream about America in space. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy so famously said, quote, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." We must make the hard but necessary decisions to keep us reaching for the skies. As a member of Congress, it is our responsibility to give our intelligence professionals, our space professionals, our military, the resources and capabilities and authorities they need to keep our country safe. Our country deserves no less. Thank you for having me here today.
To sharpen our focus about today's events, it's my pleasure to introduce the Commander of Air Force Space Command, General William L. Shelton. General Shelton has commanded at the squadron, group, and numbered Air Force level and has held key staff positions at Headquarters Air Force Space Command, Headquarters U.S. Air Force, U.S. Strategic Command, and the Office of the Secretary of Defense. He served as the Air Force CIO and understands the importance of cyberspace in today's military environment. As Commander of Air Force Space Command, he's responsible for organizing, equipping, training, and maintaining the Air Force's mission-ready space and cyberspace forces and capabilities. He leads a force of 46,000 professionals assigned to 88 locations worldwide and deployed to an additional 35 global locations. I can't think of anybody who's better prepared to lead Space Command. And ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in welcoming General Shelton.
Bill, thanks for that kind introduction, and I'd like to add my thanks and really compliments to the Space Foundation for another great space symposium. This thing is 27th year. This thing has just grown every year. 9,000 people participating this year. Unbelievable. Many other dignitaries here that I'd recognize if we had time, but thank you all for being here today, for coming into Colorado Springs. And there are many friends that I've been associated with, gotten to know over the years, and a long career in the space business, and I really appreciate all of you not walking out during the introduction. And I know many have traveled long distances to get here today, so it reminds me of a story about an airline pilot that I heard recently. This airline pilot came in for a landing and really pranged the airplane. I mean, it was, compression of the struts doesn't do it justice. He really slammed the thing in. And unfortunately, his airline had a policy that they would go stand out and say thank you to the passengers as they all exited. He dreaded this responsibility on this particular day, but went out there and did his duty, kind of kept his eyes down. All the passengers got off, but one older lady left, coming down the aisle, hopping down the aisle on her cane. And she came up to him finally and said, "Sonny, you mind if I ask you a question?" And he says, "No, ma'am, anything." She says, "Can you tell me, did we just land or did we get shot down?"